This is Mr. Beck Does Your Homework. This is AP Physics, Homework 2.6 about horizontal projectiles. This is question number 4. It says, in a TV set, an electron beam moves with horizontal velocity of 4.3 times 10 to the 7th meters per second across the cathode ray tube and strikes the screen 40 centimeters away. The acceleration of gravity is 9.8 meters per second squared. How far does the electron beam fall while traversing this distance? So what happens in an old school TV, I've got my screen this way, and I've got a beam of electrons that comes shooting out of this electron gun, and these beam of electrons comes out and hits the screen. But in reality, they don't travel straight, they travel at some slight dip because they're going to fall like a horizontal projectile over the course of this distance. And what this question is asking is, what is this displacement? How far do they fall in that distance? Well, I know that that distance that they travel, I'm going to say X world and Y world to get myself set up. I know that in the X world they travel at a speed of 4.3 times 10 to the 7th meters per second. So my velocity is 4.3 times 10 to the 7th meters per second. I know that my Y world velocity initially is 0 meters per second because they start horizontal. The screen is 40 centimeters away, so the distance they travel is 40 centimeters, but wait, everything else is in meters, so I'm going to make this 0.4 meters is how far they travel. The acceleration of gravity is 9.8, so I know that my acceleration in the Y world is gravity is negative 9.8 meters per second squared. It says, how far does the electron beam fall? So what I'm doing is I'm looking for my vertical displacement in this case. Now I have an initial velocity, an acceleration. I'm looking for a displacement, but I don't know time. Normally I use that height to find time, but in this case I don't have the height, so how do I find the height if I don't have time? Well, if I look over in the X world, I've got a velocity and I've got a distance. So I know that my velocity is just my distance over time. So if I rearrange this, I can multiply by time, divide by velocity, and find out that my time is just my distance divided by my velocity. So my time in this case is going to be my distance of 0.4 meters divided by my velocity of 4.3 times 10 to the 7th meters per second. This is going to give me some very small number, which makes sense because these things are moving really quickly and they've only got to move 0.4 meters. They've only got to move 40 centimeters. So if I've got this very small amount of time, now that time is the same in the Y world. So I've got that same time in the Y world. Now, initial velocity, acceleration, time, displacement. I know that my displacement is my initial velocity times time plus 1/2 my acceleration times time squared. My distance is what I'm looking for. My initial velocity is 0, so this term goes away. So it's just going to be 1/2 of acceleration of gravity, negative 9.8, times time squared. So whatever that value of time that I got before, square that. So that'll give me an answer. This will give me a negative answer. It'll give me a negative answer because that's negative, that's going to be positive. But this says how far, and how far sure sounds scalar to me. So unless I tell you different in the comments to this video, go with the positive value, so absolute value of that to get how far, and that'll give you your distance that this electron beam falls.